That's right, Mighty. A freezing day and tonight here in Vienna for a second time. Dan was alone yesterday, and I'm here with him today, and let me just tell you, it is cold. And certainly one wonders, even though these ministers are seemingly feeling the heat, trying to get these cuts on the table, make some decisions, they've got to be feeling the cold a little bit as well. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, yesterday was a really testy day when it came to this OPEC meeting. First of all, not a lot of commentary from the ministers coming into that room, and that really underscored...
And
they
were late.
They were late. They were late as well, really underscoring, I guess, just what the outcome is here, really still uncertain at this point. What we've heard so far is that these ministers are likely to agree to a 500,000 barrel cut to production now. That is going beyond what we were talking about yesterday, this potential 400,000 barrel cut, and also coming into the meeting really defying expectations, because the original expectation here was we would just see a rollover of the overall production deal.
And you got to wonder how much of this has to do specifically was the Saudi energy minister really trying to make his mark, trying to demonstrate that, like his predecessor, Hadley, he's the one who's in charge. At the same point, they left last night, and there didn't seem to be any movement forward on just who was going to be making those cuts and how much they'd be cutting.
Exactly. So that really sets us up for another contentious day here at OPEC. That is certainly what they're going to be discussing. If they do indeed go ahead with this 500,000 barrel cut, it would have to be distributed among the group. Whether or not Saudi Arabia is going to be willing to shoulder the burden of responsibility for those cuts is still a big question mark.
That's absolutely right. And Alexander Novak leaving yesterday pretty early on after that JMMC meeting and signaling, these are the cuts that are on the table. He seemed to walk away pretty happy, ready to come back today. But those OPEC ministers, again, Maddie, leaving that meeting still undecided.
We also finally got the Aramco pricing hanging over, of course, the proceedings there in Vienna when it comes to OPEC. 32 reals a share at the top end of that indicative range.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Matt. So when you look at the figures here, 32 is at the top end, or at about $8.53 US dollar, $8.53 in the US. This is going to raise about 25.6 billion US dollars for the Saudi government, and if they exercise this green shoe option, which they have indicated that they will do, the raise could be at around 30 billion USD. So certainly a record-breaking payday for the Saudis.
Absolutely, not half bad, not quite as much as we all talked about 3 years ago. He announced Vision 2030, of course, when we were talking about $2 trillion in valuation. We were talking about raising as much as $100 billion for the Saudi government for those reserves. But at the same point, not half bad, and frankly, not as bad as so many folks that we've been speaking to over the last couple of weeks were actually forecasting.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at how significant this is for the kingdom and for the GCC as well, we were talking about this yesterday, crunching some numbers. If you have a look at the figures, the top 16 largest KSA IPOs combined raised 26.4 billion US dollars. So Aramco would top those 16 companies. And then the top 8 largest GCC IPOs combined were $25.8 billion. So that would also top that figure. So hugely significant for the Tadawul, significant for the Saudis, and significant for the region as well.
Absolutely, just hugely significantly, frankly, significant for Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Certainly, we're going to hear more of that, no doubt, when we speak later today with Saudi Arabia's energy minister, as we are planning to do. But frankly, this is a really interesting story on so many levels. I think it's all going to be about really how it trades next week.
Right, exactly. We still don't have any confirmation, though, yet on what date the shares are actually going to hit the market, though, do we?
Maddie, you can't be surprised by that. How many years have you been listening to me talk about the vagaries of the magical kingdom? Yeah.
And I guess also a lot of it depends on what happens with the price of oil in the medium term and in the short term as well. If we do get
the next 24 to 48 hours will be crucial.
If we do get this cut, then perhaps that would give the market a sugar pop that the Saudis might like, and that would certainly help the IPO along as well.
I love that sugar pop idea. I'm hoping to get one of myself later this morning.
Yeah, coffee would be nice.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
One final question for you. So 500,000 barrels is the recommendation. That still needs to, of course, be signed off. That's going to happen today. Any visibility on a time frame for that?
Oh, honey, it's anybody's guess, to be honest, because we're talking about corralling all of these ministers, really putting the screws on, as they say, in terms of not just the compliance or lack of compliance, frankly, that we've seen over the last year or two, but also at the same point trying to convince them to add more in terms of those cuts. So anybody's guess. I mean, frankly, I don't think anybody in that room last night at around 11 p.m., 12 p.m. midnight, 12 a.m. midnight, was anticipating that we would go that long and that far into the night. So it's anybody's guess, really, Maddie, what happens and transpires over the next couple of hours. But certainly, we're hoping to be much more in the warmth and coffeeed up.
Maybe it would also make sense for them to perhaps extend just into the first quarter of the year. That gives them the option to review the deal after the Aramco IPO happens. And then when it comes to the deal extension, perhaps they might even look out to June of 2020, or the other talk was out until the end of the year. But cutting by 500,000 barrels would suggest that maybe they would like to just review this in the short term. The first quarter would probably make more sense at this point. But of course, it's all up in the air. We're going to have to get more clarity when we get back into the room later this morning.
Dan, are you suggesting that the Saudi oil minister at the head of OPEC might be doing something to sweeten the pot for the Aramco IPO? Never!
That might make sense. Yeah.
Hey everybody, it's Hadley Gamble from our new CNBC Middle East Bureau in Abu Dhabi. Thanks for stopping by. Now to watch more, you can try one of the videos that just popped up on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe.